Hi and welcome to another video update from the Fire Brigade Union. We're here in the Union's head office in London, joined by General Secretary Matt Wrack, to discuss the Grenfell Tower fire and specifically the inquiry that has just opened up into this incident. Matt, as he said, the inquiry has just started. The Fire Brigade Union is involved as what's called core participants. Can you tell us what this actually means and what the Union is trying to achieve through the process?
Sam, the inquiry is set up under legislation, and that allows for what are called core participants, and they have certain rights under the inquiry process. So the core participants include the bereaved, survivors and residents. It includes ourselves, it includes public bodies like the London Fire Brigade, the Mayor of London, various government departments, and then it also includes certain commercial interests such as the cladding manufacturers and so on. So those people, various bodies, individuals and organisations are core participants. In terms of what we want to seek out of it, I think this is obviously the worst fire in terms of loss of life in post-war history, and we want to get to the bottom of what happened, why it happened. So we want a thorough inquiry, and we want people to be open and explain what happened that night, and then we want to explore why it happened. And for us, I think particularly we want to get to the bottom of the fire service role in it. We're particularly interested in protecting and defending our members from any unfair criticism, but also we do want to get to the bottom of how this could even happen, and that's the key aims we've got.
Now, Matt, you just mentioned unfair criticism, and there has been some pretty insidious criticisms levelled at the fire service, and indeed the firefighters who actually attended the incident. This has come from people who you've termed armchair critics. I mean, what is your response to this? Why do you think this has happened, and what would you say as General Secretary of the Fire Brigade Union?
I think some of it is an attempt to move the narrative away from the building and the fact that it was clad in flammable material and a whole host of other failings in it, to firefighters and what they did in response to a fire that shouldn't have happened because of the state of the building. And it strikes me that it was very unfair, the criticism that was in a number of the newspapers, because one is they hadn't heard the full evidence, not even from the experts that they were referring to, and then they hadn't heard the firefighter evidence. Our view is we need to hear the whole of the evidence before we can make an assessment. And clearly, I think, an attempt to focus blame and attention on firefighters in a very unfair way. My own view is firefighters were in an impossible position that night.
We just need to discuss one form of criticism in particular, and that's this accusation of institutional racism that's been levelled at the service. That's a pretty extraordinary claim. I mean, what's your reaction to it?
Well, I think that on this point and the previous one, we have to accept that in an inquiry people are going to ask questions, and we're not going to always like those questions. And people have the right to ask questions and try and get to the bottom of things and demand answers. On that particular one, I think it was a suggestion of potential racism or institutional racism. I see it as an outrageous slur, to be honest, on our members. There's no evidence whatsoever that at this incident or any other incident people are judging the people they're trying to rescue on the basis of their race, religion, background or anything else. Indeed, we have members who are part of that community and who grew up in that community, and the idea that they or anyone else would be doing that, I think, is deeply insulting to firefighters. So we've answered that. I do want to make it clear that we've spent a lot of time in that community over the past year. I do not think that is remotely the view of the vast majority of people around Grenfell at all. There's huge support for firefighters in the Grenfell Tower and the surrounding community.
Now, Matt, you talk about the surrounding community because, as well as representing and supporting firefighters, our members involved in the incident, the union's been heavily involved working closely with the community around Grenfell. Why is this important to you, and what does this support actually look like?
Well, firstly, we're a humanitarian service, and that's reflected in what we do as a union as well. I think everyone was horrified by the fire and by the number of people who died as a result, and I think people wanted to show support. So we as a union have done that as well. We have our Firefighters 100 lottery, for example, and through that we've been able to provide funding for various local organisations and charities who are particularly supporting children and young people to get over the trauma through sport, through art and other activities. We've also helped to fund the rebuilding of a boxing club that was destroyed. So we're doing things on that level to support the community and rebuilding, and also building links with local people. Secondly, we are working with ourselves and our legal team to make sure that the lawyers representing the bereaved survivors and residents are well informed about fire service matters. They understand the fire service, its role, building regulations and so on, and we're assisting that way. And thirdly, we're working politically with campaigners, and people understandably want answers and want justice, and we support them in that, and we should support them in that. And so we're working with a campaign group called Justice for Grenfell, for example. We've organised joint events, a joint demonstration with them after the anniversary. And I think the union, as a result, is known in the area, and I think it's held in high esteem with a lot of people in the local community. And I don't see there's any difference between the interests of the bereaved survivors and residents and the interests of firefighters. We want to get to the bottom of this. We want a thorough investigation, and we want to build links and unity between firefighters and those local people.
Now, Matt, you mentioned answers, and the narrative around this whole incident is about getting answers. But inquiries into previous large-scale incidents have taken years to unfold. How long do you think it's going to take for the Grenfell inquiry to report? And is the union committed for the long term to get the answers that people need?
We're certainly committed for the long term, yes. I think we've expressed some concern. We've made that public about the terms of reference for the inquiry, whether it's broad enough, and so on. But we're in there for the long haul. But I think people need to be prepared that this will be a long, difficult process. We're now entering the firefighter evidence stage, and that is going to be very painful for a lot of people and a lot of FBU members, having to give evidence or have statements read and answer questions, and there's no avoiding that, unfortunately, and that is something we want to provide support to as well. And then that's phase one of looking what happened. Phase two, which will be later, will be about why and examining the causes behind the fire and failings in the system and so on. And I think that's where our expertise and things we've said in the past particularly come into play, warnings that the union made in the past. So I have to alert people, this is likely to be a very, very long process, and it's going to require a lot of effort and a lot of resources. Hopefully, something positive comes out of it, a change of direction in terms of public safety, and change of direction in terms of fire safety policy and policy towards the fire and rescue service, because I'm very clear there has been disgraceful complacency about the risk of fire in the UK.
And Matt, just finally, there'll be firefighters who attended the incident, who ran into that tower. The M999 emergency fire control staff who took those calls will be watching this. Now, because of the terms of the inquiry, effectively, they've been silenced. Given the fallout from this incident and the incident itself, and especially the recent criticism in the last few weeks, what would be your message to those members that are watching this now?
Well, Tom, I think it was summed up at our recent conference where we had representatives of firefighters and control staff from all across the UK, but we also had international guests from North America and Australia who spoke, and Grenfell was a theme of the week, inevitably. And I just want to assure people that firefighters all across the UK, in the FBU in particular, but across the world, watched that fire with horror, but also watched the response of the firefighters in awe and admiration. And that's, I think they're held in huge esteem. People are very proud of what they did, and they should be proud of what they did. That's the people who took the calls, as you say, the people who mobilised, the people who responded to the incident itself. So I think there's nothing to be apologetic or ashamed about, so that people should be, I think people are very proud of how people responded that night, and our task is, I think, to make that clear as this process unfolds. So they have the support of this union, and indeed, as we were told, they have the support of firefighters all across the world. I also think they have the support of the public, including the public in that community.
Well, thanks very much indeed. Well, for more updates, not just in this incident, but in the wider work of the union, you can go to our website, and that's www.fbu.org.uk. Or for more immediate updates, you can follow us on Twitter, and that's @FBU National. Until next time, thanks for joining us, and thanks very much, Matt.
Thanks, Tom.